Welcome to Transformations, the podcast where we explore powerful stories of personal growth and profound change. I'm your host, Bjoern Woltermann, and today we are honored to have an exceptional guest, Jim Detmar, joining us. Jim's journey is nothing short of inspiring. As a leadership coach and advocate for conscious living, he has dedicated his life to helping others find their true potential. However, Jim's story goes beyond his professional achievements. It delves into the personal quest for personal health. However, Jim's story goes beyond his personal achievements. It delves into his personal quest for optimal health and vitality through innovative methods and technologies. In this episode, Jim shares his experience with overcoming physical and mental challenges, the crucial moments that influenced his path, and the diverse approaches he has embraced to enhance his personal well-being. From mindfulness practices to cutting-edge health strategies, Jim's insights offer a comprehensive look at what it means to live a truly transformative life. Join us as we discuss the practical techniques that have empowered Jim and explore the broader implications for anyone seeking a healthier lifestyle and gain valuable advice on achieving and maintaining a high quality of life. This episode is packed with wisdom, motivation, and actionable tips for anyone on a journey of self-improvement. So sit back and relax and get ready to be inspired by Jim's keys to unlocking your potential. Hey Jim, how you doing?
I'm doing great, Bjorn. Great to see you.
Absolutely. It's been a while.
It has been.
About 6 months, 7 months, something like that.
I think that's correct. Yeah, we've texted back and forth a little bit, but
Yeah.
mostly me asking you questions about my Katalyst suit. But
this
will be the first time we've sat down and had another thorough conversation.
We had another thorough conversation, yes. We met in, I think it was November, in Florida at a beautiful event. I think it was on women's health. And you were speaking, I was speaking, and then, we had dinner together with our wives, which was lovely. Yeah, good seeing you again. How have you been?
So good to see you. I've been fabulous, absolutely fabulous. You know, I'm devoted to having a fabulous life and to being a fully alive human, and have been for many, many years. So I've cultivated all the support structures and all the intentions that allow me to have such a life. So it doesn't mean that I don't have days when I'm sad or scared or physically off. I do. But even on those, I've learned to rest at something that is unchangeable and imperturbable, a level of equanimity that's pretty much here all the time. So
Wow.
I'm just marvelous. Thank you.
That's so good to hear. That's so good to hear. I mean, you're doing this professionally. You're helping people also living life to the fullest, don't you?
That's right. That's what I do. I work almost exclusively with business leaders, and we work on conscious leadership as a category. But what I'm really doing is helping leaders to be like fully alive people. Alive at work, alive in their leadership, alive in their intimate partnership, alive with their children. Where are they sub-optimizing their full aliveness? That's really what I get interested in. So I work with leaders, and I am a leadership coach, but I'm really a life coach for people who are leaders. And usually the group I work with now is very, very successful in the sense of they've achieved many things. They have checked the box on money and power and influence and fame usually, and they've gotten to that place where they're saying, is there more? Is there, or something is off. I got everything I wanted, and yet something feels off. And so I come along and we start exploring what might be off or what might be available, what might not yet be fully realized in their possibilities. That's what I do.
Beautiful. Yeah, I remember you shared a little bit of that when we met back in the days. And I think doing things consciously and like very intentionally is so important because, I mean, first of all, we have this life. We might have another one. We're not quite sure about that, but we believe so. But well, what are we making out of it? What are we making out of our time? And as you said, like you might have sad days and good days, but what makes you unshakable? That's really the question.
Yeah.
Like, what's your foundational makeup, and how do you like organize your life?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think it's really important to live a life where you're not at the effect of people, circumstances, and conditions. In other words, you've moved what psychologists call the locus of control inside here. So, in other words, when I say I might have days that are sad or tired, or it might be a horrible weather day outside, that's just the presenting reality. It doesn't mean that the inside, the deep place, needs to be troubled by that. It's like, imagine, the ocean is a great one. The ocean can have turbulent waves on the top. You might have had a fight with your child, or, you might have missed your quarterly numbers, or, something. You might be sick. You might have a disease that has shown up. Those are like the waves on the top of the ocean. And it can be a tsunami one day. But if you just go down 50 or 100 feet in the ocean, it's still. It's quiet. It's available to the turbulent surface, but not profoundly affected by it. So I think people who have real equanimity have cultivated the capacity to have a deep, solid place, however we get there. And then, of course, we work on what's on the surface and try to make it as wonderful as it can be. But so much of that is totally out of our control. Whether or not your flight's on time, or whether or not, it goes at all. They're totally out of your control. You're moving, I know you move all over the world. Well, those things are out of your control. A lot of what happens at Katalyst, quite frankly, is out of your control. There's a lot that's under your control that you're devoted to having be exquisite, but then there's stuff that just happens. Well, how do you stay peaceful, alive, joyful? I distinguish joy from happiness. Happiness is circumstantial.
Yes.
I had a great dinner, with a beautiful bottle of wine with great friends, and so I'm happy. Joy is more of an uncaused, profound sense of well-being. It's stable. It's there all the time. This is what the great traditions point at. So that's what interests me, how to cultivate the depth of the ocean and play on the waves and have the waves do whatever they do.
Beautiful. There's a German saying that doesn't, or proverb that doesn't really translate, but I'm trying to translate, and it basically say, happy is who forgets what they can't change.
Oh, that's good.
So it's really about, and when I sometimes I use analogies all the time, because I think when you work with analogies and then especially craft them to your audience in the moment, it's a good way to explain, situations or moments or whatever you want to, or mechanisms that you want to explain. And I mean, I cannot change the weather, but I can change my clothing. Right? Or I cannot change the cards that I get dealt in a poker game, but I can what I'm doing out of it, right? Because you're not playing the cards, you're playing the other player, right?
There
You just
you
should
go.
don't deal with that, right? So it's always the question like, what is just noise? And then the noise just goes away. I travel a lot, as you said, and I mean, I've been doing this like heavy travel for like 15 years, and it actually got me like partially to like this journey because of a heavy travel. And people get mad at like delays and this and that. I don't get it. It's like, and even the person, like what I always do is like, so let's say something really goes bad, like flight got canceled or whatsoever. And when I come up to the desk, and generally I'm lucky because I fly so much, you get like nice treatment, whatever, fine. Like I know that's not normal. But I always ask like the person that's interacting with me, like, hey, how you doing? Shitty day, huh? And they're like looking at me like, yeah, is that so? what are we doing here? Like, and it's just making a we thing. Like, instead of like,
Right.
I want another flight and I want this. It's like they are having a bad time and they're trying the best to get people to a better place. And then some people just like shout at them. It's like, I don't get it. It's like, I really don't get it.
It's so beautiful what you're doing there. You're being present to the human in the midst of the chaos. I don't know where I heard this quote, but somebody said, most of us view other people as either scenery, machinery, or people. And you look at what happens when the flight gets canceled and you get up to that counter. Most people are viewing the human being on the other side as machinery.
Yeah, like a computer interface.
Exactly. You
Yeah.
just got to get me on the flight I want to get on. Sometimes we view people as scenery. They're beautiful. We like to look at them. We like, that's a beautiful part of being a human. And we do some mechanistic things, but what you're doing is you're contrary to the moment. Everybody else, most, are going to treat that person as machinery, and you're going to treat him as a person. That's a game changer. It's a game changer for you because all of a sudden you're in a different consciousness. Hey, this is a human. They're having a shitty day.
Yeah.
And like you said, then it's not me and it, machinery. It's not even me and you. You're doing it's a we. We're
Yes.
both here. What do we
100%.
want to do?
100%.
That little shift that you're doing, that little hack, goes a long way to creating good days.
Exactly. And in that moment, the person actually wants to help you.
Yes.
Right? So I mean, I truly believe that even a negative moment can be a good experience for everybody involved if you come out on the other side, right? So
That's right.
I mean, let's say mass cancellation, you're on a call center, you finally have a person, right? And it's like, instead of like, yeah, I waited for 20 minutes in the line.
Right.
Fine. Everybody else did. The person on the other side had no influence on this, right? No influence on this. Now you can come in hot-headed, or you can say, hey, the connection is not very bad. Where am I getting you? And then they say, I'm in Manila. I'm like, great. So now it's good evening, right? And they're like, what? And it's just, and like, it sets the tone of a conversation to a totally different place. And then we all, although it's not a nice moment, I mean, the occasion is not nice, but we can make the best out of it. I think that's
right.
don't take the baggage into the conversation.
Right. One of the things I talk to the people I coach about a lot is the difference between living from entitlement and appreciation.
Yes.
A lot of us live from entitlement. So if we stick with this flight thing, most people who get their flight canceled believe that they are entitled to get the flight they want, get on the flight they want, have it be hassle-free, right? So they move from that posture of entitlement. Then everybody they're encountering is there to get them what they're entitled to. Well, most people aren't that excited about playing that game with us, if you look at it, right?
No.
You are moving from more of a place of appreciation. It doesn't mean you appreciate that your flight got canceled. We could talk about that because that's a whole other level of consciousness. But it does mean that you're appreciating the human on the other side of the interaction. This is a human. They live someplace, Manila. I'm present enough to know it's nighttime there. Good evening to you. By the way, thank you for taking my call at 2:30 a.m. in Manila.
I literally start, like, it's literally what I said. It's like, thank you for helping me today with my issue. It's like literally like ahead of time. And then, it's like, it changes the whole, I mean, it also makes theirs, like, it costs me nothing.
Right.
It actually, I benefit from it, but the other person has a better experience. Like, I mean, there's just, it's technically not hard, but I don't think we really, where do we learn this? It's like we are not really being taught this in school or, in general interactions. And I think we should. I mean, a little bit
Good
more
thing
like
to
that.
learn young in life. Well, when our ego develops around, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 years old, once we have this developing ego, which we need, everybody needs an ego, nothing wrong with an ego. But as soon as you have an ego, a sense of I, then the natural tendency is for the I to become central to the world. So the whole world revolves around my little I, 7 billion people, 8 billion people, and all of nature is around my little I. And then, our parents, when we're young, kind of meet our needs that way. All of our needs do get met. And so then we think, okay, I'm an I, I'm separate from you, I'm the center of the world, and the world should support my I-ness. Well, then that just turns into entitlement. And no place along the line do we start saying, hey, at least be aware that there are other eyes out there and they're having a different experience and you could see them, let alone if you keep doing the deeper practices of consciousness or spirituality and you start to experience actually that there's no separation. There's only oneness going on. This is what all the great traditions are pointing at. So now that person taking your call in Manila isn't other than you. They're you. They're just... So now your whole mindset changes in terms of how you relate to other people. And as you know, long term, the greatest predictor of both longevity and happiness are your relationships.
100%.
The Grant study at Harvard, where they've studied all those people and now generations of those people since the 1940s, about longevity and well-being, and the thing that trumps everything else, and you and I are both devoted to being physically healthy and mentally healthy and da-da-da-da, but it is relationships. And of course that is talking about your close relationships. The blue zone, they're close relationships. But if you decide relationships are going to matter to you everywhere you go, you've changed your game in life.
Yeah, it's also like at that moment, it's like, do I make the next 5 minutes of my life miserable or nice? Right? I can fight with a person, I cannot, I can just laugh about it and take it somewhere else. And actually one way I look at everything, not everything in life, but maybe subconsciously a lot of things in life, is something or someone part of the problem or potentially part of the solution.
That's good.
Right? So the person on the call center is not part of the problem.
No.
Right? Part of the solution. If you have an interaction with a person who wants to fight you or wants to okay, that person is part of the problem. Okay, great. Let's deal with it in a different way. We can switch, right? We can switch. Right. But in general, I think life is much nicer and enjoyable if you start with a positive view of any interaction that you move into, right? I mean, even let's say, someone stops beside you and rolls down the window, could be road rage or could say hey, you have a flat tire.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I assume he wants to tell me something. I roll down my window. It's hey, you have a flat tire. And so, last night I came back from LA, I was driving and there was this guy, no lights on. By the way, it's something that really blows my mind. All this daylight driving lights, people think they have lights on, but they have no lights on. It's pitch black car out in the desert. You couldn't see it. So I'm behind the person and I'm just putting lights on. And then the person's first of all, not reacting, but then they put their lights on. And then I passed by and they were thank you, right? It's assume it's a positive thing.
Yeah. That's such a powerful orientation.
Yeah.
And it's actually under your control. Like in the German proverb you quoted, which is very much what the Stoics have said, or Epictetus, happy people are people who pay attention to what's under their control. Unhappy people pay attention to things that aren't under their control. It's pretty good. It's just what you quoted. Well, your attitude, to a large degree, there are some ways that it's not. If you've got a chemical imbalance or you're hungry or tired, there are ways in which your attitude gets more difficult.
Hangry.
To be in. Yeah, that's exactly right. But if all the other systems are, in the stable zone, then your attitude is under your control. And choosing to, like you said, assume the positive. Assume this person wants to tell you have a flat tire. Move from the positive. It just leads to more happiness. You're just happier more of the time.
Wow. I think I feel we could go on for hours on this. I would love to definitely. So when we met in November, you also met Matt Dawson, good friend. And what did you do? You went
what
on a
did
journey.
I do with Matt?
You went on a journey,
and
right?
with you.
And with us, yes. But you went on a journey.
Yeah. So, first of all, a little bit of context. All of my life, I have been interested in feeling fully alive. A key part of that is vitality. So now we're crossing over into sleep, movement, nutrition, light, strength, balance, flexibility. So I've been interested in that all of my life. And so I was excited to be at this conference where Matt was, who's the founder of Wild Health, is talking about the latest technology on, first of all, disease anticipation. We can now see disease coming way out in the future, and then what to do to be preventative, all that. So I met Matt, liked him right away. And I'll start there. The first breakfast that we were both speaking, we ended up at the breakfast table together. And I had begun to sense that I needed more protein in my diet, which, by the way, you were going to confirm when we had dinner. So I'm 71 years old. I weigh about 185 pounds. And at that point, I was probably getting maybe 100 grams of protein a day, maybe
Which
less.
is already, for most people, good, but not enough.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes.
But not where I needed to be to do what I wanted to do.
Yeah.
So for a while, I'd been looking for how in the world do I get 160 grams of protein, let's say that, and not eat 5,000 calories? Because again, I'm 71 and I'm about at the weight that I want to be at. I want my body mix to be different, which it is because of Katalyst. We'll get there in a minute. So what I loved about Matt, because I'd been working on this and people give you kind of standard answers. He said, I will send you how I get that much protein on 2,500 to 3,000 calories a day, which is about what I want to be eating. So I was immediately intrigued because there was no fluff. It was a very direct answer. And it was real simple. He said, I put 4 tablespoons of collagen in my morning coffee. That's 20 grams of protein, tasteless, odorless, and gets the protein immediately into your bloodstream. So I usually get up between 5 and 5:30. My first cup of coffee, 20 grams of protein. Then the next thing is a protein shake. And he told me exactly what to put in the protein shake. So I get 40 to 45 grams of protein, and it's got, 300 calories. Very low in calories and delicious. And he's got, some mushroom, 4-sigmatic mushroom stuff in it. So it's good for my brain. And a little bit, some overnight oats, stuff like that. Then he got me eating sardines.
Yes.
And yes. So later he did a whole genetic testing on me and on my wife, Debbie, got loads of great information there. But he said, Jim, one of your superfoods is sardines, probably any of the smash fish, sardine, mackerel, anchovy, salmon, and herring. And he gave me a specific recipe for sardines. So 5 days out of 7, I eat sardines in a mix with, some pickle juice and mustard and some crisps, that are non-gluten and another 10 grams of protein. And it's good. It's delicious. Then in the afternoon, he told me about Maui Nui venison sticks, the cleanest protein on the planet.
Yeah.
10 grams of protein in each one. Depending on what I'm having for dinner, I'll have 3 or 4 of those in the afternoon. And then he said at night is when he loads up on good complex carbs and a little more protein.
And you can sleep well on carbs. You can sleep very well. You have deep sleep. I also feel like, the carbs, they bind the water. You don't have to go to the toilet at night. It doesn't break your sleep cycles. Oh, yes. So we all yes. We all
Game changer.
Same playbook. Yes.
Game changer.
Totally, yes.
And I loved it. Now, I'm a little odd. Bjoern, you're probably this way too. For 80% of the food that I put into my body, it's just fuel. I don't care. I need it to be tolerable taste-wise. I like it if it's even a little bit good. For 20% of my meals, I want to eat something that's beautiful and delicious and culinarily exquisite. And so I do that in a handful of my dinners. But for most of those meals, that coffee, that protein shake, that lunch, and I don't care. I want clean fuel that optimizes my stable blood sugar.
Yes.
So with those guys, I've worn a continuous glucose monitor. It's just as stable as can be, no spikes, because I want to feel vital.
Yes.
And then the secondary knock on when I had dinner with you and I said, okay, I'm going to buy this suit. By the way, Matt had a suit and he highly recommended it.
Yeah.
And I thought, okay, I'm going to give it a whirl. And I remember I said to you, here's the deal about me. I will do it. And so I bought it. I think I got it in December. And I did it twice a week, every 3 days. It's interesting. One of the things Matt told me in my genetic testing was that my body does well to strength training, but it needs an extra day of recovery. Mm-hmm. All of my life, I'd been doing strength training every other day, and it worked fine. He said you ought to add an extra day of rest, which I did. And you guys say, every 48 to 72 hours. I'm on the 72-hour side. Mm-hmm. But remember, and I said, I'm going to be your test case because I just had a DEXA scan. Mm-hmm. And I said, I'll do it with incredible discipline. And then I'll do another DEXA scan and we'll see what happens. Okay. And remember, you said to me when we were walking out of the restaurant, I'll never forget, you said, okay, now if you're going to do that, we also have to talk about protein. We ought to talk about creatine. So one of the things Matt did is he put me on 5 milligrams of creatine in my morning shake. And he says that's perfectly safe. It's actually good for mental function at that level.
It is.
So then I went up to 160 grams of protein a day. Wore the suit. I missed 1 day in 5.5 months. I took it on the road with me. That's one thing I love about it. It travels so well. I missed 1 day in 5.5 months. I increased my protein. And by the way, we can talk about sleep and we can talk about all the other hygienes, which I pretty dialed in on for a lot of reasons. And then I go back to my doctor. I do my DEXA scan and I gain 11 pounds of lean muscle. I'm 71 years old. You read all these things that say over a certain age, you can't build muscle. That's just not true.
It's not true.
If you exercise the muscles and you give your body enough protein and enough proper nutrients, so I'm stronger than I've been probably in 15 years. My body is stable. I play tons of competitive pickleball. I'm quicker. It's injury-free, totally injury-free. And we could talk about that because remember when I talked to you about the suit, and we got one for Debbie, one of the huge benefits, I'm sounding like a commercial for you. I don't mean that. I tell everybody about this doggone suit. You didn't. That's exactly right. Because again, I'm 71 years old. I've got like anybody, some chronic injuries, elbow, back, knee. But to put on that suit for 20 minutes every third day, build that much muscle and not do any damage to any of my joints and ligaments, that is a friggin' game changer. For my wife, even more so. Knee surgeries, knee replacement, meaningful back problems. She's been doing it. She's not quite as fanatical as I am, but she's been doing it. Again, no pain in her body. So that was I met Matt Dawson and you at the same retreat.
Yeah.
Now let's say 6 months ago. Mm-hmm. And at an important level of my life, and we can talk more about all the other stuff I've done with Matt, at an important level of my life, it was game changing. And again, I wasn't just some drunk in a bar around physical fitness. I was devoted.
No, you were
to health.
already.
I've never been out of shape, but this changed it. It just changed it for me. So 2 powerful relationships that have made a difference in my life. So thank you. Thank you for everything you did to crack the code on this. Because for years, people were saying, wait a minute, we ought to be able to do this, but nobody could really figure out how to do it in a way I think that was reasonable economically and that you could actually do. And you were diligent enough and disciplined enough and crazy enough to say, there's a way to do it. So just over here on my world, thank you, because my life is different as a result of it.
Wow. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. I mean, crazy is an interesting aspect. I think there's also, like, for entrepreneurs in general, there's a very interesting lesson here. When I 12 years ago first discovered this and it fixed my back pain, and I was like, this is a miracle. But of course, it was like so much less sophisticated. Like it was in its infancy. Like the technology was in its infancy. But in physiotherapy, we've been using it for 50 years at the time, 60 years now. So we know like the science works, but we couldn't figure out like how to really apply it and make it easy to use for people. But then also, I think we didn't have enough intrigue to really go for that. Like, as you said, we kind of accepted at a certain age, like this is how much you atrophy, this is how your sarcopenia curve goes, you can't build anymore. We've accepted it, right? And if you accept things, you don't go for the stars, right? So you don't. So, I mean, a similar example for me that I always love as a business case is really what Elon has done to space travel, right? So it's like you could accept space travel is expensive, or you can say, we want to go somewhere. For that, it cannot be expensive. Like, what do we have to do? And then fundamentally say, we have to land this thing. And then you say, like, I can do this in science fiction. And then 6 years later, he lands this thing, right? So it's just, that's a little bit what I say. But coming back to crazy, people literally right, left, and center told me I'm crazy. I mean, I had my career. I was in tech. And people are saying, like, you're quitting your job to do what? And it was tough. We had like really tough years, and there was a lot of things that I couldn't do anymore and couldn't afford anymore for a while, and like that's just what it is. But you have to be called crazy, because if you're not called crazy, I think two things are missing. A, you're late, because if it's obvious to others, there are already 20 others doing it. So if you're not hearing, is it from friends, from your own industry, from investors, from physicians, if you're not hearing you're crazy, you're too late. You're not shooting too high, right? We're not shooting high enough, sorry. You're shooting too low. Because also it's going to take, and everything takes longer, right? Everything in business and in development takes longer, but then the impact is bigger than you expected. I think that's almost true to everything. Things take longer, but then the impact is bigger than you expected it to be. So you have to be called crazy for that reason. The other reason is from the inside. If you're not really crazy about something, you will not last in the really dark days.
Oh, that's good.
Right? Because if you really
you're going to need that motivation in the dark days. Where are you going to get it?
Yes, exactly. And for me, so I looked at what I saw through the economist's point of view, where I said, okay, there's a different, like, how much does someone have to give in? How much do they have to know? How much effort have to they put in? How much output do they get? Like, when do they get it? What's the time? Like, all these things. And I saw something very different in this technology training side by side. First of all, fixing my own back, I was just once a week, because like literally that was my travel schedule, and like every Monday I could do it. So I just did it once a week initially. And my training partner was a 6-year-old female. So I was like, wait a minute, there's something different here. But then the other side really is, this is the first time technology actually helps you in getting stronger.
That's good.
It's not just telling you what to do. And I saw an opportunity to really change people's lives that have no alternative. Because fitness products are for fitness people. Like, the same 15% of the population buy it all the time. And if I would have told you, like, oh, here's a new kettlebell, or here's a new dumbbell, or like, no, like, this would have not worked. Especially in Debbie's case as well, right? Because like, once you have like joint replacements, and I mean, I don't load my back as well. Really, and I wrote down my mission statement when I quit my job, and I wrote, I'm going to put a dent into the CDC statistics of the U.S. population, of the health of the U.S. population. Good. But to put a dent, okay, great. A few years later, you're doing the math again. It's like, okay, so to get 10 million people, okay, that's like, okay, no, that's not even making a dent. Okay, you need like 40 million people, like have a quarter of the population. Okay, to get, like, what? Like, so, like, it really defines your path forward if you have a really clear vision and mission statement around that. Yeah. But especially in the dark times, right? So It really matters. And let's see. I think we have a fair shot. Um, but crazy is definitely part of it.
Have you always been crazy? Were you always one who could see a possibility? Were you always one who was willing to risk being misunderstood, right? Because part of being crazy, you got to be willing to be misunderstood.
I think misunderstood was my default, but this was half because I thought differently, but it was also half because I grew up with very low communication skills. And I caused a lot of the trouble for myself because I didn't communicate well and I couldn't communicate well. But then there was a moment in life where I was like about 16 and I realized, okay, if things are shitty around you, like you are the common denominator.
Wow.
And I was
You
like,
realized that at 16. That's
Yes.
impressive.
yeah, 15, 16, that was kind of like
Yeah.
the moment. And I was like, okay, I'm the common denominator. And okay, what can I do? And that is how communication maybe became one of my superpower. Because I generally it's like a muscle, right? If you actually train it and then you overcompensate and then you have super compensation. It's like that's like kind of what I think. But the crazy probably yes, because the way I look at the world is like I really want to understand things. And Simon Sinek says like start with why, and I absolutely agree. But I believe you have to ask 5 times why before you get into like really, really relevant space. Because I can ask you like, why is this? And you give me an answer. And it's like, okay, why is that? And like, where's that thing where do you think is that coming from? Right? So like you really have to understand, and understand is one of our company values where I say, you really have to understand a problem or your customer or a situation or your partner that you're currently working with before you can even start solving a problem. Because if you don't understand the situation or the problem, like what are you doing? Like you're just shooting darts like in the dark, like it's like not going anywhere. And I think that's really understanding, and then problem solving is probably where I come from. And in 2019, we had a very interesting time. We already had the company, we had our first FDA clearance, so EMS training is in the US very late in the game, right? We're about 15 years behind in terms of like adoption of the technology. And that is because it's highly regulated in the United States as a medical device, where in the rest of the world it's consumer electronics. So because that's what it is. So that was an extra entry barrier for the technology in the US. So we got that clearance, we had that, but ultimately I knew I had to make it as a home product that people can use in their homes and on their own. Because if you don't live close by a studio, like you can't scale towards mass adoption if it's a personal training studio from a cost perspective, from a logistics perspective, from a how long does it take to scale? I mean, scaling real estate is really difficult, so it doesn't work. And during that time, my team and I, like, especially in engineering, we said we had to make an invention a day. It's like there was something that we couldn't Google, we couldn't find, no one has done it, like we had no idea, like we literally had to invent a thing a day. And we did that. We literally did that. And generally how it went was around lunchtime, the team came to me and said like, hey, this and this and this. And I'm like, okay, great. And then 5:30, 6 o'clock, most people left the office. Like we opened a beer and sat down. It's like, okay, so explain to me what we have to do now. And then we had like 2 hours, 3 hours, like invented the next thing and like, solved the next problem. That was literally like a common thing. And one learning and one moment that was really beautiful, and I've talked about this before, was one day team came to me and said like, we're stuck. Like we can't do this. Like this is like impossible. We can't figure, like, no. It's like, we don't even have an idea where to look. Like, it's like, Doesn't work. So I was like, great. I said, guys, I don't have time now. Let's do it tonight again, like as we normally do, like whatsoever. But quick question ahead of time. How many problems did we have so far this year? I said, 100? Okay. How many of those did we solve? 100? I said, what's the probability we're going to solve this one?
That's good.
And they were like, okay. So 5 o'clock, I go to the fridge, get 3 beers, sit down with my guys. So what's the problem? Oh, no, we got it.
Already solved.
Already solved.
Nice.
Right? And this is something that I think is one of the great learnings. Confidence you can only get through experience, not through books. Right? You have to do something. But many people are not aware of what they've already achieved. Right? They're not aware that they are like superheroes in their own lives.
Yeah.
Right? What you already have achieved. And then looking back and like realizing this, like, oh yeah, pretty badass.
So
like I can do the next thing.
So good.
Yeah.
Which is what you did with those guys when you said, how many have we had? How many have we solved? You just shifted their frame
Yeah.
to, oh, right, we're problem solvers.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
Now they go look at the problem as problem solvers versus being people who are at the effect of a problem that is too big for them.
Yeah. And you guys many times can do it without me.
Yeah.
Right? So
I'm
that was
just
really
curious for the fun of it. When you look back at the development of the suit, what was the most complex problem to solve? Just not marketing the suit or getting
No.
Actually building it so it would work. Was there one or two that you think, oh my gosh, this one is really complex?
So I would say the first big breakthrough was for me to find a framework how to think about it. So the big challenge was, think of a piano. So EMS devices were pianos, and they were very manual. So you had a suit, and there was a printer cable coming to you, and there were wires everywhere, and then there was a trainer who was playing DJ on the device while they told you what to do.
Okay, interesting.
Super manual.
Okay.
And how much they're going to give you on which muscle group was guesswork, or still is guesswork in most of today's work. They just look at you and like, maybe we do a little bit more, we do a little bit less. It's not quantified. It's guesswork. And as with a piano, you need a very good pianist to get good music out of it. So with a trainer, that's really like, you need good trainers. And we are normal distributed in life as everything. So you have better ones and good ones. And then that person, although he might be great, might have a bad day or might be like mentally somewhere else. So consistency, to drive consistency, I needed to figure out, how do I quantify this, right? How do you make it quantifiable? So, and the analogy that I use is like, if you want to build an air condition, you first need to have a thermometer.
That's good.
So we needed to build this. Like, so how do you think about this? And the way I thought about it was, I knew what it made a good training today. So there were 4 ingredients. The first one was the technology. What does the technology do today? And I get the roles. Like, it has the timing, it has the output, it has this. Like, this is what the roles of the technology are. And then there's a trainer. Okay, the trainer is like judging, is it good enough? And is adjusting and is taking feedback from the customer and is telling them what to do and is whatsoever, right? Running the show and is counting for the customer. Like, hey, now we start and so on. The third one is the environment, lighting, music, whatsoever. And then last but not least, I'm missing one. Oh, the customer, of course. The customer is part of the role.
Yeah.
Not missing, I'm just joking. So the customer is part of the role. And the customer is giving feedback to the trainer. And he's following the instructions and, that. So now, if I want to do a home environment, and this is, again, it's an economics point of view. It's like you have to be able to model something and then you can optimize it. But if you cannot simplify it, you cannot model it. Yeah. So now, okay, I have home. I have technology. I have no trainer okay, this box doesn't exist. I cannot control the environment. I don't know where they're doing it. Doesn't exist. And I have the customer. So now all the roles that are in the environment and in the trainer have to be distributed. But coming back to my piano analogy, if the trainer is the pianist and the customer is dancing to the music, I cannot have the customer play the piano and dance to the music. So the roles that the trainer took have to be taken by the technology. I cannot offload them to the customer. And that was the framework that I could then, okay, next topic. I could slice up the big problem and make it like small individual pieces. Okay, so how do I sense it's enough? Okay, I need it quantified, great technology. How do I give feedback? Okay, I need an input for the customer to give feedback. How do I motivate? Okay, I need definitely content. I need guidance. But then the piece that the trainer is actually training while they are working out, they're working out themselves while they're giving the instructions. And then they make all the adjustments, and then that telemetry is being taken and personalized to the customer. That was really like the big breakthrough at that point in time. And I have IP on that. And, you know, when I wrote all this out, like that was the big thing. But making the huge problem digestible in like small individual problems, like, okay, the next topic and the next topic and the next topic, I think that was really key to success in building the concept.
Yeah.
But the actual, like, real painful thing was building a smart textile that lasts.
Interesting.
It
Say
doesn't
more
exist.
about that.
It doesn't exist, right? So no one, like, there is no, like, do you have like any other piece of garment that has electronics in it?
No.
Yes.
I mean,
and that's the thing. It's like for 15 years, the textile industry has been talking about smart textiles. And I went to like 10, 15 or more trade shows, and I went to factories and they all show you prototypes. Nothing is commercial. So building a smart textile, like a garment, that then also is easy to use, doesn't break, and then is even machine washable. You can throw the electronics in the washing machine. It's like, that was the real tough piece. That was the tough cookie. And it took us over and over. It takes a year longer and another year longer. It's like, that has been a real tough cookie. Probably also a little bit underestimated, but that was
you
just
literally
painful.
had to create something that didn't exist. And certainly didn't exist in a way that could be commercialized to a consumer in his home.
No. We had to build everything from scratch.
Wow.
We literally had to build it from scratch. And hey, I'm sometimes joking, like it's my last hardware startup. It's like I'm not doing this again. But on the other hand, I'm so grateful for this journey because with software you can only do so much. So if you really want to have impact on lives and on people, like you need hardware, right? So I mean, if Steve Jobs would have I'm not comparing myself, I'm not saying, but I'm just using this as an example. It's like if he would have just had great software on a Nokia device, it would have not worked. Right? You have to create the hardware, and that's really where it goes. And that is, if you think about it, like the big shifts in society are hardware. Planes, cars, right? Medical equipment, pharmaceuticals, they're all physical, right? It's like with software, we're doing a lot and we're optimizing a lot. And it's super, super important. And maybe AI is going to be really the big one out there, and we'll see where that takes us. We made it longer until 96, which was the original Skynet day, right? So we made it much longer, so good for us. In Terminator 2, that's, I think 96 was there was this date where, like, you know, everybody's saying, okay, we made it longer. Hold your breath. And I'm a big movie buff, therefore it's like, I think it was like a game-changing movie I remember it. I was in London, was in school, like, at the time, and watched Terminator 2, and it was mind-boggling. It's like an amazing movie. But coming back, it's like really like hardware are the things that that impact lies.
And from where you sit now, like with the suit, the hardware of the suit, do you have a vision for a next iteration? Is there more improvement that you see that could exist? You can already see it?
Oh yeah. So this is the version now that we have that is mass producible. Like it's clearly mass producible. But it's like far ahead of its time, and like people don't even know exists yet. And if you compare it with our market companions, it's like, yeah, it's out there, like absolutely ahead of its time. But if you looked at let's stay with the phone example, right? If you looked at the capabilities of the first iPhone, or like only 10 years later, like it's like we have like LiDAR, like laser radar on the front, and we have like 3D cameras, and the thing makes better pictures than ever, and the AI on this thing is like super smart, and it's not even used fully, right? I mean, like Core ML, like the Apple framework, is not even fully used. There is a lot that's coming, and it's going to make the whole experience even more immersive, even easier, even more joyful. But the big benefit is here today.
Yeah.
The big benefit is here today. The rest is polishing and things on top of it.
Yeah.
And it's going to be super cool, and it's going to be really fun.
Yeah, got it.
But the big benefit is here, right? It
already can do for me what I need it to do for me.
Yes.
There's not going to be a lot more improvement in that.
No, right. There's going to be a lot of polishing, and it's going to be fun, and it's still like the next time, it's going to look like, what? Like really, really crazy, and like blow people's minds again. But the fact that we can reach 80% of your body's muscles in a 20-minute workout without injury risk, and even the small stabilizers, which are super, super important, and we can build lean muscle mass at any age, independent on where you start. I mean, you were already lean and fit and flexible and so on and so forth, but we have customers that are very overweight, for example, or very injured. That we have, and that's really what we want to now get the word out on, because now we're actually able to deliver.
Wow. One question I had, I was asking Debbie about this the other day. The suit stops at my elbows and it stops at my knees.
Yes.
I'm sure there's a reason you didn't go all the way down.
Yes.
I've just always been curious. What's the reason it didn't go all the way? Because you certainly could have.
Yeah, totally. So first things first is like when you do the workouts and you stimulate, you still feel like your hand is like, right?
Absolutely. Like try to drink a glass of water when the 4 seconds hits.
Yeah, right? So your hands are cramping. And the reason why that is like the nerves that basically go to the forearm, they pass the humerus, and they get some of the stimulation. And the forearms and the calves are very easy to stimulate. So your grip strength actually is improving, although you don't directly have any electrodes on your forearm. You don't really need that, right? So that's the thing.
Cool.
Depending on the stimulation intensity, what we actually recommend for women with very long fingernails, that they actually have something in their hands, because sometimes they just...
Oh, that's good.
They punch themselves, right? So it's actually happening. And I did by chance, like I was at IRSA, which is like one of the largest fitness conferences here in the US, and I went to InBody, and they had a grip strength tester. And I mean, I don't explicitly like do grip strength training whatsoever. I just do Katalyst, and I do push-ups and pull-ups and a little bit of body weight stuff. So I did this test, and guy's looking at me. He's like, I'm like, what's up? We haven't seen a number like that yet. So it was like, and he said, like, he walked me over and he said, like, no, you're off the charts. Like, literally, like, here it is, like 135 pounds, like 140 pounds. It's kind of like where our chart ends. I was at 152, right? And like, I'm not even doing this like intentionally. So the side effect, like your grip strength will increase with the use of Katalyst tremendously, just as a pure side effect. I mean, there's so many side effects that we're not like advertising and talking about, but all these muscles get covered, so we don't really explicitly have to do this. The calves is a little bit of a different story. So we have exercises and workouts, like first of all, you're standing all the time. You're also getting some stimulation to the nerves that, cover the calves. But the calves are also the muscles that you use to balance. So if we actually would override them quite a bit, you would just fall over.
That's right.
Right? So it's like,
interesting.
let's not do that, right? Like, no, let's not do that. So it's more of a safety topic here, and it's not needed. And then some people, I want to do this. And so in Europe, I know of 2 cases where people basically took the arm straps of a device and like put them around the calves and so on and so forth. And then people literally fell over. I'm like, great, no. It's like, no, let's not do that.
That's a great answer. Thank you, because it's something I've been curious about. Because everything else about it makes intuitive sense to me. I'm not a designer of any kind. I don't really understand mechanical things. It just works,
Yeah.
By the way, I got the second version of the suit. Something went wrong with the first suit. I forget what it was. Maybe the hamstring didn't work, and immediately you guys sent me a whole new suit. And Isabel, who I talked to on your team, by the way, fabulous customer service. If I have a problem, I email her, and in 3 days, she's doing a Zoom with me and saying, yeah, you ought to do this or do that. Fabulous. And she said, we're going to send you the new version of suit. So it was new. I don't know whether this is true, but, when I've told people about it, the complaint that people have is I'll say 10 minutes. Now it's down to me 2.5 minutes of getting it wet.
Yes.
That's the complaint, right? That's
yes.
it. But this one, it seems to need less water, or maybe I've gotten more efficient. At the beginning, I was really soaking each pad,
Yeah.
And now I thought, I'm just going to see how little water I can put on and see it work. And I basically go, it's down to 2 minutes to get it wet, which, if people were going to complain about something, that was it. What do you know? You have to get the whole thing wet. But I don't know whether you changed something or whether I've just gotten better at it. But my number one functional complaint was what it takes, because then I'd have water all over the floor, and not now. So did you change something, or did I just get more efficient?
No. We definitely did. We definitely did. Yeah, so I think it's probably a thing of a combination of both. But what we are doing, we're now on our 3rd generation suit. We're coming up on our 4th generation suit. And what's happening with every generation is we're improving on materials, we're improving on cut. With the 4th generation suit, I built my own material. So we went into material science, and we did our own weave. We went back to the factories because no one had the stuff that we wanted to have. It's really understanding, and it took us 2 years to do that, right? So literally the team, I have 2 particular team members that I'm doing this with, and we basically coming back to this origin, what do we want this thing to do? Right? Really down to the point. It's okay, so it has to be flexible, it has to be lightweight, it cannot corrode. So right. The industry standard is a micro-silver coated yarn. And the problem with that is first of all, silver corrodes over time, especially with chlorides in detergents and salt in the sweat, all these things. But also microsilver is bad for the environment because if it's a toxin, right? So you use silver to not have odor, right? Silver is in materials. So for example, the NASA guys that we're working with, they told us they put silver into all the materials because they have no washing machines on the space station. So the silver is kind of a so-ish bacterial killer. Apparently it's it stinks on the space station because everything is old and they can't exchange the air. You can't just open the windows and say hey, let's get some fresh air in, right? It doesn't really work. So silver is antibacterial, but if it gets washed into the oceans, it also kills everything else. Right, so you don't want to have that. So we got rid of that and went to stainless steel, which does not corrode in the first place and doesn't have the side effects. But then it got very stiff, and it's got like, you have like all these different, it's heavy and it weighs a lot whatsoever. So we created our own like specific weave, which like combines like stainless steel yarns with like a specific material that's called Tensol. It's like made out of eucalyptus yarns. It's like eco-friendly, doesn't take water, like only 10% of the water than cotton in the whole process, like so you don't take this. But then from the like tea tree oils or eucalyptus oils, right? These oils, they're also in itself antibacterial. So the yarns that come out of this like have this like natural antibacterial property, so we don't have to put chemicals on it for the material to not smell. So like we put all the stuff into this, and like then we build our own material, and that's on the next generation suit. So every time that's that. Then we wanted to make it easier to wet, so it has to like soak it up easier, knead less, and stretch better. And the next generation actually is going to have a color change when you wet it, so you can actually tell if it's wet or not. Like, so
Brilliant.
it's like all these things go into it, and it's like, again, just 2 years. Like, hardware is hard. I'm telling you, it's just hardware is hard. But now it's like literally, I also have it down to like 2 minutes ish. Like I put it down on the ground, like it's like super fast. Goes this way.
Wow, I love your entrepreneurial spirit, Bjoern. It's really fun. And I imagine it's fun for people to listen, to get inside how an entrepreneur thinks about problems, what they do with innovation, the drive that sits behind it that gets you able to go through the dark time and gets you out of bed and gets you on the next flight. I mean, it's not easy for you to leave, your wife and people you love and go away. But you've got a big vision to put a dent in the CDC findings. That's a big vision. That gets people out of bed.
Yeah. No, I mean, we see success with people of all shapes, all sizes, all ages, all of that. There's a big topic that's now coming up, that is the whole like Ozempic topic, where people are like starting to use different weight loss drugs. And one of the biggest side effects of those is like they also lose muscle mass.
Oh, interesting.
Yes, because they lose body mass. They don't only lose body fat. So they lose fat, muscle, and bone. And that is a problem, because recovering from the muscle loss and the bone loss is really, really hard. So theoretically, the prescription should be, you can get on this weight loss drug, but you have to exercise. But with traditional methods, that's unrealistic.
Right.
If you're like 350 pounds, you're not going to go to the gym once of a sudden. Like, it's just not happening. You would have done this before. So in my opinion, I was very split on these drugs. And good for you if you can do it without. But again, coming from a place of understanding and compassion, reality is that 40% or 42.5% of the US population are obese.
Right.
And the side effects are just massive. I mean, like, you have a 10x fold like likelihood of getting dementia or Alzheimer's, and like it's just like so many side effects. And if there's a way out, then we have to use the way out. However, it's, again, analogy. Let's say we find cars, we come up with cars, great stuff, amazing, right? Yes, but we need seat belts, we need a crash cell, we need airbags, and we need speed limits. Great. Yeah. So we also need this for that type of like new innovation. And we had customers that went on Ozempic and lost like a ton of body mass, but didn't lose most of their muscle mass. So they basically maintained that. So you gained muscle mass, right? Because that was your goal. For those people, it is don't lose it. That's really what it is. Like, just lose the stuff that you don't want to have anymore. So there's a huge wave, I think, coming of like really getting people in better shapes, because technology is here to help. And that's an interesting thing for me in health and wellness. And again, as a economist and game theorist, maybe also interesting to like hear, like, you're motivating people, you're working with people. I think extrinsic motivation only goes so far. Like, you cannot shout at people and like make them actually do something. Like, But that's what the fitness industry has done in the last 100 years. It's like gives you trackers and gives you motivators and hot models and DJs and that's kind of stuff. But you're not actually helping someone in the act or in the process.
Right.
So instead of building a car, we put Spotify and AirPlay and Google Maps on a horse carriage. Yeah. So now with Katalyst on the strength training side, with better nutrition help on the supplement and nutrition side, and these drugs, I think we can really make a big dent in the next 10 years. That will be transformative for health. And then, as you said, like preventative, we can also do a lot, right? There are good diagnostics now, and they're not that expensive. So I hope we're going to change the trend, because currently life expectancy is not growing in the US, really.
That's right.
I hope we have technologies that we can really make a change and have societal impact. I would really hope so. And I'm very optimistic about that.
Yeah, I love your vision and your passion. Really cool. I'm a beneficiary of it. So thank you.
Jim, can I ask you 1-2 more questions around here? How did you integrate it into your life? Like, when did you do it? Do you do it in the morning, afternoon? Like, what else do you do? Like, you say you play pickleball.
Yeah. So it's part of what I would call all of my physical hygienes. Like brushing your teeth, flossing, I have a set of physical hygienes. So they include, and then we can talk about how I order them. They include zone 2 cardio training, about 6 hours a week. So, 60 to 70% of my maximum heart rate. For me, that is walking in the woods. I live in northern Michigan, lots of hills and woods. I go for a walk, hour and a half or so every day, 4 or 5 days a week. Zone 5 cardio training, just 1 day a week for me. That's all that Matt Dawson tells me that I need. I do sauna, heat therapy, and cold plunge. So I do heat and cold therapy anywhere from 3 to 5 times a week. Those are really important to me in terms of vitality.
Love it.
Another presenter at the conference we were at was David Starbuck Smith, who wrote Ageless and Painless Tennis. And I met David years ago at that conference. And so over the years, I've had various pain things. And David was trained in a method called Egoscue. And so I have a series of, it looks more like yoga, but it's not yoga, postures, positions that I put myself in. And it's about 15 minutes a day. And I do one for my back, one for my knee, one for my elbow. They're all preventative. So that's part of my physical well-being. And then pickleball and golf are my physical activities that I love. So, generally speaking, when I'm coaching leaders who don't have physical activity, I tell them, do something you like, because there's a higher probability you're going to keep doing it. Ideally, do something outside. There's something nutritive and generative about being outside. And third, do something with other humans. Golf. So I play golf and I play pickleball with other humans, because then you get that relational piece.
Yes.
Okay. So all of that is going on. So I've got balance and flexibility through my David Starbuck Smith Egoscue training. I've got my heart being taken care of through zone 2 and zone 5. And so then I told you, I know you do, when we asked you and you said, I do Katalyst, but I also do, I think you said I do 100 pull-ups a day, and I do like 100 push-ups a day, and I run like 5 miles over rocky terrain. And I thought, no wonder your body looks like it looks. Your wife too. Both of you guys look like the perfect advertisement. But remember, I said to you, I'm not going to do anything other than Katalyst. Yes. Now, I might do some farmer carry, because it was great hearing you talk about grip strength.
Yeah.
I might do some farmer carry uphill just to make sure my calves and my grip. But now that I hear you, I'm not even sure I need that. But I'm still doing only the strength training from Katalyst. So generally speaking, I do saunas in the evening. I like cold plunge early in the morning as a stimulant. I do things like exogenous ketones, and I think those are powerful as well for mental clarity, and cold plunge fits in that. I do my walks usually in the morning. I do so Katalyst. Here's the deal. I'm devoted to doing it, so I do it usually. I do a set of mental things as well. I do breathing practice, very disciplined breathing practice. I did Wim Hof for years. I do another kind of charged breathing, and I'm a meditator, so I meditate an hour a day. So I start my morning with breathing and meditation. Then the next thing that I do will usually be a cold plunge, and then depends. I'm looking at the interaction, by the way, between cold therapy and strength development. I think they need to be separated by several hours so that I don't blunt my strength development. And then, so often I'll do.
You're on it. You're fully on it. Absolutely true. Yes, definitely.
So I do it takes me about 26 minutes to do my Katalyst. And I almost always do it in the first 3 hours of my day. I just like to do it, get it. By the way, I didn't anticipate this, but like when I do the power workout, so I do strength and power. Those are the two that I did. I called Isabel and I said, should I just be doing strength? She said, for me, every third one ought to be power. And by the way, I don't know whether any of your other users are this way, but if people who listen to the podcast who have this, I basically do the same 4 things over and over again. Like Michael was the first trainer that I worked with. I just do Michael. I just see, does Michael have a new strength 3 or does he have a new power 3? And I just do it because I don't want to spend a lot of time thinking through, which one to do. Someday I ought to ask you, should I do the golf one or something like that, but skip that. So I'm incredibly efficient. I spend about 25 minutes doing all of my strength, twice a week doing all of my, so less than an hour, all of my strength training. I do it always in the first 2 or 3 hours of the day. Oh, what I was going to say was, when I do power, my heart rate gets up. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's got a cardio benefit to it.
Totally.
Because speed and strength equals power. So that's the way I do it. So it's mixed in with a whole set of what I would call vitality maximization in my breath and movement. And then I have vitality maximization in diet and nutrients, vitality maximization in sleep and rest. So I take a nap almost every day. I'm disciplined around my sleep. I've cultivated great sleep hygiene. And then I have a whole set of regimens around the hygienes of relational health, which is that's a huge part of what I do in the world. I coach people on how to have world-class relationships, how to deal with, relationships happen, then they get ruptured, then how do you repair them? So those are kind of the big buckets of my life: mental, spiritual, physical, nutritional, sleep hygiene, and relational. And Katalyst is key in one of those dimensions, and then I have similar kinds of hacks in all the other dimensions that I use.
And in the last 6 months, so you have done most of this like before as well. You've been doing
all
meditation.
The other stuff I've done before. Actually, meeting Matt changed my nutrition and changed my supplement regimen.
Yes.
One of the things he drew my attention to, you might have actually mentioned this as well, was testosterone. And I've always had low free testosterone. I think I was down around 5.6 or 7. And for my age range, it should be, I think it was like 10 to 18, something like that, free testosterone. And I've always been reticent to go on testosterone replacement therapy. So Matt actually said there's a new supplement that's out. I don't remember the name of it. He put me on that and my testosterone doubled. That also happened. And that could be part of the muscle building as well, right? So creatine, protein, higher testosterone being done in a healthy way and Katalyst equals 11 pounds of lean mass in 5 months in a 70-year-old.
Yeah, amazing. So you did 6 months. I think I looked it up. It's like, 40 something workouts you did.
Yeah.
Think about like 40 something workouts. That's 20 hours of training.
Right.
You spent 20 hours of training and you gained like 11 pounds of muscle mass at your age, which is like, wow.
Well, let me tell you a fun story. So I've got a lot of doctors who are friends and people who are what Peter Attia might call, medicine 3.0, like Matt Dawson. I think Matt's world class, but others who are friends. So when we were down in Florida, I never tried on the suit. By the time I got ready to sign up, I couldn't try it on. So I had to just kind of buy it sight unseen. But I sent two of these guys, they're both men, your website. And I said, hey, Bjorn's down here. I just had dinner with him. I think he's a credible guy. I was assessing, are you a trustworthy human? I thought, he's a trustworthy human. He feels like that to me. I'm good at reading people. Matt Dawson says this is really good. What do you think? Both of them wrote back and said, I don't know. People have been thinking this should be a thing for a long time. I think it's probably smoke and mirrors. I don't know whether I'd invest. I said, well, I'm going to try it and I'll let you know. So I go do my DEXA scan, and it happens to be at the office of one of these guys who's a meaningful guy in my life. He does a lot of my healthcare, and he's brilliant and good and has a very holistic approach, very much like Matt. His name is Ari Levy at Shift Medicine. He's fabulous. And he's the one who walked back in the room and said, 11 pounds of lean body mass. So it was like, whoa. So he was questioning, a healthy skeptic, which I think a good physician would be.
Totally.
And it was like, whoa. And even Matt Dawson was blown away that somebody my age could pick up 11 pounds in that time frame. But again, I want to say I didn't do one other thing than, you're right, 20 hours over 5.5 months or whatever it was. The amount, I just am mind blown, because I also like to be efficient. I think you mentioned once that you, or somebody liked to go to a gym and like to lift and be around other lifters. And
he said this, yeah.
There's a whole, energy around that. And I've worked out all my life. I did P90X for years and I went to the gym. It's not something I love. So what I'm looking for, Bjorn, is I want the minimum time invested to get the maximum output. I'd be hard pressed for somebody to find something where you can invest as little time as I invested and get this kind of a result. I mean, you're an expert in the field. Maybe there's something else, maybe heavy weight training.
No,
I guess,
no,
I don't know, but then you're going to get injured.
No, but gym is literally not. It's literally not existent. And the number that we're looking at is literally what's your time under tension.
There you go.
Per muscle group. And if you think about it, because it's all compound movements and your whole suit is firing at the same time, it is out of the 20 minutes, half of the time you're under tension. Let's forget the first 2 minutes, fine, because they're warm up, great. You're 9 minutes under tension on your major muscle groups. Like, how much time do you have to spend in the gym to get like major muscle groups under tension for 9 minutes? Like, you're not getting this,
good.
Right? You don't really get that. And it starts lower and gets higher, of course. And, you're doing statics and dynamics in some areas, like isometric in some areas, and
right.
Movement in other areas. But yeah, the efficiency is there is nothing else that we know about that is more efficient. And again, it's also non-invasive, right? So you're also like, there's no drugs involved. You are actually like going through the movements, right? You're not shortening your muscles. You're keeping like your range of motion, which generally what people tell us as well is like range of motion and balance improves.
I would say that probably an obvious result is my quickness. Pickleball is a quick sport. Mm-hmm. My quickness, I'm much quicker.
Yes.
I'm faster. So I think in the power workouts, we're developing more quick twitch as we're doing it, which has paid off tremendously, and my balance is better. Mm-hmm. So again, I don't know how to measure those. Those are just anecdotal and opinion based, but I have a pretty good sense of my body and how it moves in space. And those things seem to be, and this is what I'm saying. Most of the people I coach are very, very busy people, and efficiency is tremendously important. And they want optimal vitality to achieve what they're trying to achieve in life. And what I'm saying to them is, I just don't think you can beat 25 minutes. Many of them will do it 3 times a week because they can do it every other day. I don't.
Yeah.
So now you're up to, an hour and a half a week to get those kinds of results or better. That's staggering to me, Bjorn. That's why when you asked me to do the podcast, I said I'd happily do it because it's changed my life, my body, my strength, my injuries. That's a big deal for human beings. That's a big deal. So happy to support.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. I mean, on the fast twitch muscle fiber portion, I sometimes get asked, it's like, I'm an older person, I'm not an athlete, do I need that? And so on and so forth. And I said, especially you need that. Because as we have like, so sarcopenia is like the phenomenon that you like lose your muscle mass as you age, and you're losing fast twitch muscle fibers the first. That's really the ones that you lose, most of them. And I always say that if you're an athlete and you want to be a little bit quicker, great. Good for you. If you're an older person and you trip and you can't catch yourself, you're in trouble. If you break something, so on and so forth. If you can catch yourself, this catch might have just gotten you 5 years of life.
That's true, isn't it? You
Because
didn't break
if someone
your hip,
breaks a
and
hip,
you didn't go into the downward spiral.
20% of them, like, I think, don't survive the first year.
Yeah.
Right? So it's like really, really, really bad. So fast twitch muscle fibers are really important. I would almost say go for a 50-50.
Okay.
I would almost go for a 50-50. Because the general strength also gets activated, but it has more of a focus on fast twitch. So I would say like go on a 50-50 and try that out. I mean, yeah, so like better in sport, better in other things, and that's generally on strength, right? So if you're stronger, everything else in life gets better.
Yeah. It's just
Right?
true, isn't it?
Your hikes, your pickleball, your whatever you do in life becomes just more fun and better.
Plus, my wife thinks I'm hotter. That's a nice side benefit.
That's a good one, right?
To have my 70-year-old wife say, honey, you look fabulous. That's nice, you know?
Yeah.
That's a nice thing.
Money
I
can't
think
buy
she's
that.
utterly gorgeous. So it's nice that she thinks that, you know, I'm semi-hot for her. I like that.
Yeah. Good for you. Good for you. Jim, this has been wonderful. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for sharing your story. I hope it gives people hope and inspiration that there's something out there. Of course, you're doing a lot, and you're like very sophisticated in taking care of your life and optimizing. But there are like smaller steps into this, right? So I would really encourage everyone to look into the different aspects, and maybe we put a few links down into the notes of like things that we mentioned here in the call today. Thank you so much, Jim. Has been an absolute pleasure.
Yeah, really fun, Bjoern. So grateful, really, so grateful for you and your courage and your craziness and the gift you're giving to the world. So thank you very much.
I didn't do this alone. There are a lot of people that contributed to this. But thank you so much.
Yeah. All right, man.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Yeah, take care.